welcome to IDFC First Prank Presents ET Now, Leaders of Tomorrow's Season 12 Springboard here in the city of Bengaluru. Bengaluru is, of course, a $360 billion economy, and it contributes to upwards of one-third of the state of Karnataka's total economy. But what are some of the finer nuances of its corporate DNA that lead its entrepreneurs to characterize the culture as one that's as collaborative as it is competitive? Well, we're here at the Leaders of Tomorrow's Season 12 Springboard in the city of Bengaluru ourselves to find out. On the show tonight, we bring you Sahar Mansoor, founder and CEO Bare Necessities, Kamal Karanth, co-founder Xpheno, and Tanuj Choudhry, co-founder and COO HomeLane. Kamal, I'd love to kick off the conversation with you. Given the thriving IT culture here, right, it's obviously led to a mass migration to the city of Bengaluru from all corners of the country, if not the globe. And while the advantages are perhaps more obvious, what are some of the disadvantages? What are some of the challenges that mass migration has posed to this city?
If you look at the tech world, that Bangalore is known for, almost 1.6 million technology workers work out of Bangalore, and that's a massive number. And if
growing every day?
Growing every day, and over the last 30 months, if you look at the number of MNCs coming to India, which is what we call as GCCs, the Global Capability Centers, 51 of them came to Bangalore. So you like it or not, we tend to come here even if you feel there are infrastructure bottlenecks. So I think the challenge of Bangalore beyond infrastructure is today at this point of time also the workforce integration. And if you look at an average tenure of let's say a technology worker in Bangalore is less than 2 years, so
sure.
It is becoming expensive to hire talent. So I think the friction of talent is the most struggling one for the enterprises here. That means that when you get somebody, you have to work with them for intensity and impact versus the consistency and tenure they'll give you over a period of time. So that at a enterprise level and a tech talent level is what I want to say. I think talking about the city infrastructure, I would leave it aside for now.
All right. Well, Kamal, I think that sets a fairly candid context for us, and thank you for bringing so many facts and figures into the conversation. I think nothing tells the story the way data does. And I want to build on that, bringing in another fact and figure coming to you now, Tanuj. Because my understanding is that the world's second largest artificial intelligence talent pool is based in Bengaluru. What does that do to this city's perception as strictly a back office for the world? Right? How has that fact alone begun to change how we're viewed on the global stage?
That's a good question. I think, firstly, the fact that it was called the back office of the world is probably the reason why so many of us are here. So I think we should.
So there's some merit to recognizing that.
We should give it credit. I mean, if you think about the kind of tech talent that the city has, I think we owe a lot to the Infosys of the world, TCS, Wipro, a Biocon. I mean. So I think that transition from just being a back office to being this back office actually creating some of the best ventures in the city is something that I think those organizations deserve a lot of credit for, and I think one of the reasons why many of us are here. So that's one. But I agree with you. I think the perception always was, hey, you know what, if I can outsource something at a cheaper price, whether it's knowledge outsourcing or it's tech outsourcing, the global capability centers, it's changed from it being a cost arbitrage to actually being a knowledge arbitrage at great value. You have talent density in the city, which is unparalleled in the country. You have talent diversity in the city, which is unparalleled. We talk about languages, you talk about gender, you talk about the kind of tech talent that the city attracts from different parts of the country. I think all of them have played a big role.
So if we're talking IT exports, I think the city of Bengaluru's IT exports are valued at upwards of $65 billion, which is nearly one-third of the country's total IT exports. We can't possibly have a conversation about the city without mentioning that. But do you think that IT companies in particular struggle to overcome gender stereotypes? And do they perhaps then overcompensate in their efforts to do so?
I would say, well, a couple of things. One is I need to give Bangalore merit for the openness, right? I think because we are the startup capital, everyone is just so willing to try new things. And I think that makes for a perfect ingredients for people to come and set up shop here, but also for consumers. They're so willing to try new products. And I think that same mindset even shifts to the workplace. And I think people are so willing to have open, equitable, diverse environments. And I think that Bangalore is, I would say, I'm biased perhaps because I'm a Bangalorean true and true, but I would say that I think the diversity parity is much better than if you compare it to other cities. But I think there is also this attitude and culture of women giving back and, making sure that if they climb up to help, put their hand out to help get you up as well. So I would say that lots of credit to whatever this culture and however it's been built through, structures. It could have been policies. It could have been, quotas, targets towards getting a world that is more gender inclusive, etc.
And the combination of all of that really makes for a perfect storm.
Exactly, for sure. But also, I would say the people in the culture that are willing to make it all happen and are really, really willing to try new things and are happy to do so as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'll come back to you now, Kamal, because Sahar just brought up disparity. And when we talk disparity, there's no ignoring the fact that I think the country's third largest number of high net worth individuals are based in this city. All right, so the city of Bengaluru is certainly a wealth creation capital. But my question is, since India has long been considered to be a country of haves and have-nots, is Bengaluru now beginning to defy that? Is wealth creation happening in parallel and equitable measures, sir, across the socio-economic strata?
I think when I look at the workplace per se, the kind of opportunities that are getting created, I would say is bringing more people to Bangalore, which in a way, if you look at, we talked about people migrating and, talked about the fact that COVID, when people went back. But when I look at the number of people coming from different parts of the country, especially from Tier 2, where most of the people pass out from, if you look at Karnataka, which has close to 800, higher education, and most of them are engineering colleges.
Right.
People come to Bangalore, and if you look at on a regular basis, even people migrating from other states. Last year alone, close to about 75,000 white-collar workers moved to Bangalore from Tier 2 cities. So that's a lot. And at the same time, you look at people coming from international locations. Close to about 35,000 Indians came back to Bangalore last year. Right. So I would say that Bangalore creates that kind of an opportunity where I'm supposing that from an employment point of view, there are more opportunities. And if that is going to create wealth creation, one way, but I won't get into the social factor of who's getting included, into this, let's say wealth creation space. So I think I'm not qualified to talk about that. There are better social scientists to talk about that. I don't want to fake on that.
All right. Thank you for sharing that, sir. And thank you again for the candor. Now, coming to you, Tanuj. How might you characterize the homegrown entrepreneurial culture here, right? To what extent can we credit the foreign influences, or to what extent can we kind of pat ourselves on the back there?
So interesting one. I think there are two aspects to it. One aspect is, what is a true blue Bangalore entrepreneur?
Let's hear it.
Right? I mean, I don't think there is any one. It's an amazing melting pot of folks who were born and have lived their entire lives in Bangalore. I'm lucky to be sitting with two over here on stage. There are folks like me who came 11, 12 years back. I think what makes them truly a Bangalore entrepreneur is, one, what Sahar mentioned about, being able to pay forward. If you've actually got something from the ecosystem, I see a lot of people just paying it forward with time. B, and the second part to me is the access to capital and talent. Just going back to both of them, I think the fact that such a strong talent pool has been created in the city and there's such a strong investment climate, it frankly makes the job of a founder easier in Bangalore. And if you have to be a good, if you're a good entrepreneur, you're not going to find the hardest way of doing things.
So, Sahar,
I think this city of Bangalore has, I think, a $360 billion GDP, and it's only growing by the day. But if we were to look at some of the pain points of small and medium enterprises, we can't simply hide behind that rosy figure. As some of the challenges include, let's just say limited access to finance, right? There's the cash burn issue. Cash flow can become an issue. Succession planning can become an issue, right? If it's a family-owned and operated business, that brings complexities of its own. And oftentimes what happens in a scenario like this is establishing one's corporate culture or the softer side of your corporate DNA often falls to the wayside and it takes the back seat. How might you suggest someone that finds themselves in this position balance the two?
I think businesses of the future have to create this triple bottom line. You have to care about people, you have to care about planet, and then you also have to care about profit. I think the old way of doing business, which is just Excel spreadsheets, just the financial bottom line, is not working, especially for the millennials and the Gen Zs. They're looking to align their consumer choices with their values. In terms of constraints and for small businesses like ours, especially trying to manufacture, we have a 100% women-run production team and warehousing team. Lots of challenges, but I think a little bit of grit, some good mentors by your side, a fun playlist of music or Netflix to keep you going on hard days is the way to go.
With that, we'll slip into a short break, but our coverage of the Leaders of Tomorrow's Season 12 Springboard here in the city of Bengaluru continues on the other side. We'll be right back. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have become buzzwords of sorts. But the business case behind gender equality or diversity in the workplace is oftentimes overlooked, if not misunderstood entirely. So to do a deep dive on how these intangibles are creating a very tangible business impact, we're here at the ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12 Bengaluru Springboard. Let's listen in.
Well, coming to you now, Kamal, I think Sahar brought up an excellent point in that I think millennials and beyond, really, they care to work for companies whose values align with their own. All right? And here you've brought up, without actually mentioning the term, you've brought up the brain drain and perhaps the reverse brain drain. I'd love your understanding of how well you believe the student community here overlaps with the startup community. Because obviously, for those startups, those students, fresh from those engineering colleges, would be the low-hanging fruit. But this is also the city that sees the brain drain at the most maximum levels, sir. So your comment on that, and how might you think these two ecosystems can better align? Does it in fact have to do with the triple bottom line, or is it all about making money?
I think it's a combination of both. I think as much as we believe that today's generation wants to join a company which has a purpose and, laid out. Clearly, they're also here for the money. So I think this thing of people only, work for companies which have purpose, the millennials are only looking at that, is a bit of overstated.
Sure.
At the same time, like you mentioned, they also show it in many other ways. If an organization that you're working is not friendly, in the aspects related to, let's say, it's only profit making, it's only stretching yourself, it's only about getting the work out of them. I think they express that not just social media, they quite quit fast, and they don't possibly turn up in that way in the organization. So I think if you look at the ecosystem of Bangalore and otherwise, one of the things that is very commonly seen is the energy and enthusiasm to work in a startup. You go to any college fest, you get invites every week from universities where, the discussion is about startup. How do I actually do a side hustle? And when you go into the breaks, you'll at least be surrounded by 10 students who are saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's all about entrepreneurship discussion.
All right, coming to you now, Tanuj. Look, one of the leading criticisms when it comes to ESG is that it is simply a box that companies need to check They talk the talk, but do they really walk the walk? Do they really believe that, economic, social, and governance principles are a priority? How do you respond to that? And what are some best practices that you've perhaps implemented within the four walls of your organization?
So I think there's no doubt that leaders today versus last year and the last year versus the previous year are far more aware and are far more sure that if you don't focus on ESG, not as a tick box, but as part of doing business, you're probably not going to succeed beyond a certain point in time. So number one, there are people who are conscious about it, and I think there are actions being taken. I'll talk about a few of them from HomeLane. But I do feel that maybe a little bit like what Kamal was saying, that you have to weigh the cost. I think you have to weigh the cost, not necessarily of, do I do it or do I not do it, but to what extent do you want to do it?
Right.
Environment being one.
Right.
B, something as simple as, how do you ensure there is gender equity? I'm saying it's simple, but we all know how difficult it has been to even get enough gender equity in companies. I myself feel that we are doing a very, very subpar job in being able to ensure that there's gender equity in the organization. About 35 to 36% of our employees, we have about 2,900 employees, 35 to 36% are women. And the question is, why is it not significantly larger? Last one is on sustainability. I feel that there is for us, we use a lot of wood. That's one of the most important parts of modular furniture. I think you can start with small things. For example, the kind of glue that you're using. There are some more environment-friendly glues that we typically use, which have much lesser emissions. And these might seem like very, very small little elements which seem like a checkbox, so to say. But we've actually seen customers now coming back and saying, hey, by the way, what kind of material are you using? I feel on all the three fronts, there is a desire to be able to go and move the needle on each of these factors. But I think there are places where we tend to get very pragmatic and sometimes we hold back. And maybe that will start changing a lot more, given a lot more companies are giving it the attention that it needs.
Fair enough, Tanuj, and thank you for sharing that. And I want to build on some of your observations and come to you now, Sahar. When Tanuj just brought up, disparity in the workplace with respect to gender, I think the top two issues, if I could single them out, might be pay parity and talent retention over the long term, when it comes to women, right? So how have you gone about thinking about these issues? Obviously, there's no one-size-fits-all solution, but you must have made an attempt. So tell us more.
Yeah. I think the gender parity in terms of the pay gap is something that I'm really passionate about. And I think, I've worked in America, I've worked in Switzerland, and I've worked in India. And I will say that that's something that is kind of a no-go. Like, I feel like we have to not make excuses and really work towards, bridging that gap. In terms of retention, obviously there is kind of this lot of women who choose to maybe have kids or have family, might need to take a bit of time off, and I think to make that transition as smooth as possible, to make sure also the women connect with you, to have a plan to come back and how they would like that transition, etc. Just communicate, keep channels of communication really open.
And coming to you now, Kamal, how critical is it that the top layer of management, have female representation, right? How critical is it in terms of changing the DNA of an organization?
At least there's a business cost to it now, and I can narrate an experience. We were in Hyderabad, and there's a new GCC, Global Capability Center, being set up, and global CEO of that company had come down from UK. So I had sent 3 of my best GCC experts for the meeting, and
sure.
Post dinner, so she called me and she gave a deal to somebody else, So we made peace with that. Maybe the price was low. Generally, that's what we sales guys tell ourselves. Competitors given a lower price. And she called me and said, look, you sent 3 men to my meeting, and I want 50% diversity hiring in this place. She was hiring 1,000 people. And, she said, if you do not have diversity at your leadership team, how can you expect you will hire diverse talent for me? So
Beautiful example.
So every organization we go today, and especially multinational organizations, are very sensitive about, how is, your own gender representation. And it is playing out very strongly in multinationals. So it's, as an organization, we have 65% women. But in leadership, we're just about 35%. So, and when in client-facing roles, clients are asking these questions. So it is becoming very, very, sensitive at the top. Even if you look at the academic output of Karnataka, out of 5 lakh people graduating every year, 51% are women. But if you look at the representation, it's only at the bottom of the pyramid. It's not going away, growing up, as you go up the ladder. So, but I think one of the challenges that we are seeing, which is a good thing, is the organizations are being sensitive.
By way of closing comments, and I'll pose this question to all three of my panelists, starting with you, Tanuj. When we travel to different cities and recruit our panelists, we really try and pick a diverse range of representation across sectors. But we also handpick our guests because at some point in some capacity, they have lended a hand to the small business community. All right? So for the pain points that members of our audience may be facing, how can you act as a resource? Can they knock on your doors? What can they expect by way of support? Open-ended question, starting with you, Tanuj.
So as you know, we run a home interiors platform. So if you're doing anything with respect to converting houses into homes, we'd love to help in being able to partner and being able to provide suggestions. But I think if you're early in your journey as an entrepreneur, I can speak on not just my behalf, but on behalf of my co-founder Shrikant as well. We are always open for time if you all want to discuss things that could help you enter new markets. Happy to lend time anytime.
Coming to you, Sahar.
Yeah, anything sustainability related, like does this make sense? Is this correct? What are the CO2 emissions for this? Happy to be your home girl. But the other thing is, I'm really passionate about female founders and entrepreneurship. So if you are someone who's thinking about flirting with the idea of entrepreneurship but don't know where to get started, happy to be a resource. And also access to capital for female founders is another topic that's really close to my heart. So happy to help.
All right, lovely. And coming to you now.
Yeah, if not helping you to hire, definitely. This is something as a workshop I do with some of the forums where how do we actually as startups, struggle to hire people because we don't have the necessary, funds at the initial stage. And also, it is difficult to attract people because startups, do not actually work in the same way as large enterprises. So I think that's one thing that I can put my time out to, want people to help think through the people strategy. So that's something I can contribute readily. Thank you.
Right. Well, Tanuj, Kamal, and Sahar, thank you for sharing such a rich range of insights from your personal and professional journeys alike. A huge round of applause, please, once more. It's deeply deserved.
Well, that concludes our coverage of the ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow's Season 12 Springboard in the city of Bengaluru. I'm Pooja Jain signing off. Thanks for tuning in.